Coming at you live from the Ham Studios. Live on YouTube. And a podcast of your choosing, timing-wise. It's promo code HAM. All right, are we on the tube?
What day is today?
Today is Wednesday, June 2nd. The same day that we attended our first Niners OTA of 2021.
First one probably in a couple years. You know, last year got wiped out.
We did not attend an OTA last year. That's for sure. Yeah, the year before would have been the year.
Yeah, it's been a while.
The year before did not have quite the energy that last year's would have had. It would have been a big deal, but
yeah, I mean, I did mention to multiple people, Niners PR, that Kyle, in early 2020, as I walked out of the combine room, and Bob Lang, who's now with the Eagles, I introduced myself to Kyle. We started. It was just us two and Bob.
Yeah.
We talk, and I always work for Andy Reid. You got to get it in fast, your bio, to kind of legitimize.
That's right. Elevator pitch.
Then we started talking. He's like, "Yeah, man, I'll come on your podcast." And then obviously within a couple weeks, March 15th, right? That was late February. Kyle was coming on this podcast, and Corona has derailed it. And I haven't had a chance to talk to him since. Hell, the way we watch practice today, you kind of come in the back. You don't have access to anybody. That statement was made.
Yeah.
And it's like call it the shampoo effect with drinking. It's like if you're drunk from the night before, you have a cocktail, you feel it again. I think if Kyle, I'm bald, would introduce, hey, oh yeah, I said that, I'd come on. But I don't know how we get in front of him, guy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, apparently Kyle said that to a lot of people from what we understand, according to Mike Chazanoff, who we had a good talk with out at Niners practice. And, hopefully we'll have some stuff coming. But the time will come, John. The time will come.
Yeah.
Time will come.
Is what it is.
We keep doing the right things, one foot in front of the other, brick by brick.
Yeah. Just brick by brick, baby.
Brick by brick. A few YouTube comments. This just walked past a coworker and yelled promo code HAM. I work in a postal plant, LMAO. They looked at me like I'm an idiot. Or like the idiot I am.
I like that.
Few things, John, to identify here for people. We're recording this if you're listening on the podcast on Wednesday afternoon, almost into Wednesday evening. We were out at Niners 49. We were out at 49-49, John, as they say, and Marie P. DeBartolo away, and we went to Niner OTAs, had our binoculars, and we'll have some thoughts on that. Before we get into it, if you're listening to the podcast, check out the YouTube channel. If you're watching the YouTube channel, you may be watching it live. You may be watching it recorded, playback. Check out the podcast in the description below.
Yep. And did you mention
No.
Haberman, Middlecoff? We have a little mailbag that we'll do Friday as part of this week's a little thrown off, partly by me.
It's a holiday.
Yeah, it's a holiday, so we're rocking and
Memorial
rolling. And it worked out perfectly because Niner practice do the podcast. But leave a review, leave a question mark, Apple reviews, and then we'll answer it on the mailbag toward the end of the week. And if anything else is going on, luckily it's a slow week, so we'll be able to fit in your questions.
Yeah, we got plenty of stuff. We got plenty of stuff for the
good
for
time.
The bag alert. Hit that like button. Also, if you're on YouTube, John, check it out. I almost took it off, but I left on my just proof evidence. Do you still have your wristband on?
They didn't give me one. Is that what you got for a media member to go into practice?
Yeah, Levi Stadium. It was given to me by Hayes, part of Niner Security, who listened to the podcast, I'm sure, today. And I said, Hayes, he's wearing like the Niners, he's got like the vest on, Niner Security logo. I said, Hayes, you a big Niner fan? Actually, I'm a Steeler fan. Big Steeler fan. Yeah. So, hey, stay tuned for the part later where we talk about Ben Roethlisberger's Tommy John surgery.
Yeah. It's funny. You can meet people, and if you say you're a fan of whatever the local team is, whenever they say no, but they're a fan of quote unquote, to me, usually if it's the NFL, Packers, Steelers, Cowboys come up a lot.
Yeah.
Occasionally, if you're a Northeast guy, Giants or Jets. But I would say pretty consistently, yeah, I'm from L.A., but I just grew up a big Packer fan. Like, that happens a lot.
You probably get, as crazy as it sounds, you get more of that, I'm a Steeler fan, than you get, I'm a Seahawk fan, right?
I think the Packers and Steelers, if you just talked about quantity and generation of fans, like part of the reason the Lakers they have a double whammy. They're one of the biggest markets in American history, size-wise. LA's enormous, and their team's good. Like when you're the Steelers and Packers, and you've been good. Steelers have been good since the 70s. Packers have been good since 92 now, right? Even if you're just like a 40-year-old, like when you were like 10 when Favre gets there, times are pretty good. Their generations of fans, I think both those two operations are underrated for not being. I mean, Pittsburgh is bigger than Green Bay, Wisconsin, but neither of them are, New York, LA, San Francisco, Chicago. They have fans everywhere. Do you think both are top 5 brands when you just factor in the fan bases?
All sports?
No, in the NFL, in the country.
Packers, Steelers?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I think the Packers might be like
Steelers,
top
Cowboys.
3.
Niners.
Giants are pretty big.
Yeah, I mean, Giants.
They've won
Bears.
Super Bowls in the 80s and the 90s. The Bears haven't won enough.
I know, but I'm just saying, do you run into people who go like,
Well, to me, a big part of it is to
Bears
get
fans, the Giants.
Yeah,
fans,
to get just crazy explosion of a fan base or Super Bowls. Just getting there, but if you win them, the Giants won 2 in the 80s and then 2 more in the last 15 years. Like that like I think your fan base when you win a Super Bowl, if this was like we were like giving a business talk, increases by like 30% immediately.
Step 1, win a championship.
That's what's so amazing about the Cowboys.
Once you're done with step 1, repeat.
The Cowboys, how have they maintained it for 25 years? Is he just that good of a marketer, Jerry? They're cool.
I mean, the brand is pretty big. Sometimes it's a little out of your control. They were big before Jerry Jones bought them, right?
Yeah.
One thing they've done consistently, too, historically, they've had famous coaches. They hired a couple of college coaches when college football is obviously big, but they hired Jimmy Johnson from Miami, right? They hired Barry Switzer from Oklahoma.
They hired Bill Parcells.
They had Tom Landry. I mean, pretty big. Yeah. Pretty big. One other shout-out, John, goes to the cousin of our friend Marcus Thompson, MT3. Marcus's cousin, Devin, and all of his friends apparently listen. Keep annoying your cousin, Devin, with all of our takes, regurgitating our takes to him. We appreciate that.
Yeah, we do. Love Marcus.
And so we love Devin. Podcast brought to you in part by DraftKings. We have a DraftKings golf game right now, which is already full for the Memorial this weekend. Kind of weird the Memorial is I guess it's Memorial Day week. So that's big. Plus, NBA playoffs. This is where they separate the pretenders from the contenders, John. Get some skin in the game with DraftKings. The leader, we attest to it in one-day fantasy sports. Right now, DraftKings, use the code HAM when you sign up. DraftKings offering free-to-play pools every day during the basketball playoffs. Okay? So that offers players a free shot at up to $10,000 in total prizes each day. And the best part of it is it's free. DraftKings free-to-play pools are easy to enter.
Download the top-rated DraftKings app now. You have had it. I've had it forever. So have you. Use the promo code HAM when you sign up. Get a free shot at $10,000 in total prizes every day with the basketball playoffs. Head to DraftKings pool page to get your shot at huge cash prizes. That's promo code HAM for a limited time only at DraftKings. Eligibility restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com for full details.
We're big DraftKings guy.
Yeah, love me some DraftKings.
Joseph,
love me some DraftKings.
Joseph on YouTube says Cowboys just announced their season schedule with Post Malone playing beer pong with Jerry Jones. #marketing. They did what? Is that true?
Well, I think part of it though is like Post Malone is a huge Cowboys fan. Like that's his team. That'd be my only thing. Like I get what they're saying. But it's not – if Post Malone was just an NFL fan and the Cowboys got him, like I think he has a Cowboy tat. Like he's a diehard Cowboy fan.
Well, just taking advantage. I mean, sometimes you – like when Arizona brought Gronk out to spring ball, when Jed Fish brought him out to spring ball, it was one of those things that you go, it's a great idea because Gronk's a big deal, but it hadn't happened. Gronk hadn't been back. So just because something feels obvious doesn't mean everyone else would have done it. You get credit for that.
What's funny is you and we both talked about it when we saw each other. Hawkins was like, when's the last time you see Haberman? And you don't even realize it because you're on this so much. It feels like we're in the same office. But we don't actually see each other as much in person when you really think about it. But Peter Schrager texted me about the podcast. He's like, "Hey man, thanks for." I guess we were talking about it a couple days ago. I didn't know Schrager listened to the pod. And Jed Fish was at that wedding with Sean McVay. Did you hear that part?
Yeah.
And I thought the way Sean was asking him, like, what was it like to work with him? And he called it like competitive endurance.
With Belichick.
Belichick. And I'll never forget the way Savage described Belichick was like, the first day of training camp, there is a football treadmill. And it ain't going 10, but it ain't going 2. It's going maybe 5. But he gets on that treadmill and he's on it till the end of OTAs, till summer break starts. And that's where he separates himself. He doesn't sprint. He doesn't walk. He's at but the pace never deviates for 9 months. Most people mentally break.
Yep.
Actually, it's actually not 9 months, right? If you're talking late July till right now, I mean, we're June. That's a long time.
It was the Flying Coach podcast. You mentioned on the show the other day.
McVay's an elite edition.
McVay's really good. Schrager, I think, is fantastic in that role. Like, I hadn't heard Schrager in a podcast form. Like, I think he's really good also. McVay's a star because he's McVay. But then, like, he tells a lot of stories. Schrager has some really great insight. He's had some really good just, like, career advice type stuff. The Cliff Kingsbury one they just had. So I listened to half of, like, LaFleur and Saleh the other day, the other half yesterday, and then Cliff Kingsbury on the way to and from Levi Stadium. It was very good, so highly recommend.
Schrager's like the modern version of what I imagine like Mike Silver was in the 90s. He's just in with them.
He's like
in their houses.
Our boy Zach Taylor got his win.
sitting at McVay's couch. Like that's Schrager's killing it.
Yeah,
Schrager got in with the right crew.
Schrager is killing it, and I think he also. Well, we could talk about that's a whole other thing, but he does a really good job just separately because he's unique. But his podcast is good, so check out. Not that they need our promo, but yeah, man, they're really good, really good. All right, should we dive into stuff?
Yeah.
One thing we did not talk about before we started this, our reactions to OTAs. We want to make individual videos on this one again. I mean, we always do, but you want to do intros? 3, 2, 1 it?
Yeah, you want me to grab my geology things?
Yeah, do you have one nearby?
Yeah.
Yes, that is true, Ricardo. I'm a big fan. All right. So we're going to 3, 2, 1 it. For those of you who are new to the podcast on YouTube, sometimes we do YouTubes that are just for YouTube. Sometimes we do ones that are also the podcast. This one is also a podcast. And so as we go, we'll, you see some of the behind the curtain, how the sausage is made stuff here.
Making an Evergood sausage.
Making it Evergood sausage. I was at the A's game the other day. I saw some Evergood. I have an Evergood sausage, actually.
They're good.
It is good. Local company, right?
Yeah. San Francisco.
Bob Melvin, Oakland A's wins record. Shout out to Bo Meljohn.
I don't think they give Evergoods to the players though.
No. Third party vendor, John, in the minor leagues.
We got to mention that. We got to hit that at the end.
All right, I'll make a note. A's food. All right. Okay, here we go. You ready?
Yeah.
3, 2, 1. Hey, I'm Guy.
I'm John.
It's our YouTube channel. Subscribe to it and give this video a like.
Podcast below in the description. Check it out.
Podcast have brought to you in part by our friends at geology.com/ham. 40% off any trial set.
Yep, geology.com/ham. Face wash, face lotion. Can't recommend it enough.
All right, we got our first eyes on Trey Lance in person today. We went out to Niners OTA. We got to watch him. I guess we could have posted some of the videos in this video and on this podcast to prove that we were there, but we both posted on Instagram, so you can go see some of the videos of Trey Lance. The good stuff you can't really film as time went on, but we got to see him. What'd you think? What were your first impressions of watching Trey Lance throw the ball around a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, when you just see him physically, now Jimmy is, I would say, slightly below average. I wouldn't call him, partly because there are short quarterbacks in the NFL right now, and some of them are good. I mean, Russell, Baker, Kyler, right, 6 feet and under, which is not normal in the NFL. And, I mean, two number 1 picks, and Jimmy's, right around 6'2". But to me, I mentioned this to you at practice, just watching Trey Lance's physical attributes, because that's all. I'm not – can't see him reading defenses, and there was a play, probably team later where it got picked or dropped. It was hard to tell from our vantage point, but like, I'm not judging. I'm just judging him up. Arm strength, physical stature. I said to you, if he had gone back to school, right, for his junior year, I think he came out redshirt sophomore, the hype on him to me would have been Josh Allen, Wentz, just this small school elite talent. And I said, listen, I don't know the quarterback class top to bottom right now.
Sam Howell.
But I think he's probably the number one pick in the draft. If he has a good season, puts up numbers like he did his freshman season, when you just look at his physical attributes, and you could argue you don't even necessarily need to, right? Like more than ever, the unknown and the physical attributes are going to win out. We didn't even really see him run because you're not tackling anybody. And that's an element that, like, he's big and has a big arm. But God, I mean, running is an element that he brings to the table too. Like, he's blue chip might be a little strong because, I mean, he ended up going to where he went to school, but he looks the part, man. I mean, there's no way around it. Like, that's what it's supposed to look like.
Yeah, I mean, look, he's not blue chip in the sense that he literally was not a blue chip recruit, but based on his physical skills, he is blue chip based on size, strength, athleticism, arm strength, and speed, right? He would be, if you didn't know anything about his background and said, okay, scout, is this guy a blue chip physical, build, just everything together, you'd say, yes, he is blue chip. I think one thing that was good, it was not a very long OTA practice, but we saw we got to watch a lot of individual drills. I know that's your speed, John, a 1 hour practice. For the millennials, phone break, we got to watch a good amount of 11 on 11 and a plenty of 7 on 7, right?
Yeah.
We got to see a lot of them. And, the first thing that I think stood out, and we'll talk about Jimmy. I got some other stuff about Jimmy that we'll get to. So do you. But I think in terms of size, that stood out. I thought two plays, one hits Kittle down the sideline, and Kittle looks really good. And just is active and screaming and yelling at people. But the incomplete pass you're talking about, to me, was significant in just the display. You don't see a ton of 100-mile-an-hour throws in these settings. We did see some deep balls. You can talk about some of the deep balls we watched him throw to a stationary target. But the one pass that got broken up, which you see, it feels like you see a lot when you watch a 7-on-7 highlight. It'll be nose and within 5 yards, and there's just a line of like linebackers like 8 yards down the field or something, and you're trying to fit it into a tight window, which is what he tried to do. It was the one throw that I really saw him try to really throw a fastball. And it was a fastball. Like, you noticed the throw before you saw the result. You noticed the throw. Because I said I went, whoa, as the throw got unloaded, and then it got deflected, and you started laughing at me for loving the throw before we got the result. But to me, it was partly like there was the Warren Sharp video that went around like a month ago, in which it's like the cut up of every Josh Allen pass that should have been picked but wasn't last year, and it's like 18 balls or 20 balls or something like that. Like, he does have a speed in him. He does have in his arm something that it may not be in the strike zone, but it's going to be hard to hit, right? AKA, it's going to be hard to pick. And he made one throw like that on Wednesday, and it was an incomplete pass, not an interception. Clearly, he was trying to fit it into a tight window. It was not complete, but it also was not caught by the defense.
Well, I think in plays like that, and you just, I know people listening, you can't attend practice and just even the minimal videos that come out because the Niners are smart. They limit the amount. His physical attributes, to me, seeing that is exactly what I said the entire time why they couldn't take Mac Jones. Because part of taking a guy really high is he has to possess the elite traits, right? And then ideally playing quarterback more than like other positions and playing football in general is more than just traits, right? Ideally, you get Trent Williams, who's big, can run like a deer, who's powerful, and is an elite player. Like, just the total package, right? Most guys aren't. I mean, Tom Brady was not coming out. Aaron Rodgers was not coming out. But Russell Wilson, obviously, like the best. Mahomes wasn't even viewed as that coming out. But if you're going to take a guy at number 3 overall, you have to be confident that you can coach him up, right? Which clearly they are. Like, add things to his arsenal upstairs, just because naturally you're only going to know so much at 20, 21 years old, right? You're going to be able to coach him up mentally. Like, that's, to me, you cannot teach what he possesses physically. Where the problem with Mac Jones is he's limited physically. So you're getting a guy that, like, Trey is going to be able to do things for Kyle that even Jimmy, who actually is more mobile than, like, the Jared Goffs and the Cousins of the world, can do, but on a way different level. And Kyle had mentioned that during I guess his introductory press conference when they made the trade. It's like, ideally, you'd want, like, Lamar Jackson meets Drew Brees. Was he talking about that? That was before the draft, right? When him and John sat down.
That was the Monday before the draft, yeah.
Yeah, and part of that is, like,
Angry
that's
Kyle
why you get
the Monday
this.
before
Now,
the
we
draft.
don't know how good this guy's going to be, but I already sign off on like, that's what it's supposed to look like. Like, Mac Jones, I don't even know how we would have done this podcast if Mac Jones had just been like, wow, he just really seeing it well. Like, fuck. You know? That's what you told me about C.J. Beathard.
Yeah, that's Michael Holley's job now.
It's done to even – they drafted the guy. So there was even, like, talking to a couple people out there, like the Mac is still a conversation, right? It's like,
well, of course. This is what I said before the draft. No matter who they draft, they'll draft that person, and then it'll be like, okay, the decision is over. But really, none of this has even begun. Trevor Lawrence and Zach Wilson and Justin Fields and Mac Jones and Trey Lance and maybe some third rounder or fourth rounder or fifth rounder that's going to have a career. This thing is only just begun. It's only just, but the idea that, like, we know now that Trey Lance is definitely better than Mac Jones, we don't. I mean, everything we've been talking about has been about draft value, but this thing has only just begun. And that's why you're looking at this is, I think, in part because you're going to have a condensed preseason with only 3 games. This is going to be a hugely anticipated preseason because one of the things that we cannot know when we watch him at OTAs, you're allowed to tackle quarterbacks in the preseason games, John. Right? And until you can do that, I don't know what a guy looks like running around making plays.
Yeah, I mean, I there's a balance to it too. Like, you know, the one thing with preseason games is the McGlincheys and the Alex Macks, and I mean, Trent Williams probably won't play a snap. There's a balancing act of throwing them out there with guys like some practice squad or get them hurt because the guys on the other end, like the one thing in preseason games, you have people that shouldn't be out there with your high-end players going up against some guys that are on defense doing everything they can to make a team, right? And it's a hard balance because you want to play him a ton during the preseason, but it's like, am I playing him in the second half of some of these games, right, with third and fourth stringers? Like, that's where you get in these precarious situations but he needs the reps. This is where I think Dilfer said it with Russillo a while back. I don't know if if you told me Jimmy doesn't play a snap in the preseason, I will not push back on that. I'd have no issue with it. What has Jimmy proven in the preseason? He's not out to prove anything. Maybe give him a series, maybe, but like McVay forever didn't make Jared Goff do preseason games. Like I'm cool with Trey Lance starting all the preseason games.
Yeah, but even then, I mean, it's the only question would be where's Jimmy in terms of by the time you get to, you know, early September, is he where he needs to be in terms of just timing and rhythm? And if he is, then you really don't gain anything.
Yeah.
Right.
To me, he looked like just normal. We'll get into Jimmy here in a second, but like the Jimmy I saw out there is going to be like, he just stays healthy. He's going to be ready for the season. Would you agree with that? Like if he doesn't play a preseason game, I will not have a
Garoppolo's fine. Yeah. Garoppolo's fine. The question is like, do you want Trey Lance playing with any second teamers? And if so, how much?
That's fine with me. So I mean, he is a second teamer.
So in other words, if you're treating him in 3 weeks, like, by the way, when they play the Chiefs, the Chargers, the Raiders, will we see one of those 3 starting quarterbacks? Like, not going to see Mahomes, right? Derek, maybe Herbert, new coach, new offense. But
wait, what are the 3 preseason games?
Chiefs, Chargers, Raiders.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, in theory.
It sounds good, like, because you think regular season. They play. Where's the Raider game?
Raider game is at Levi's. See you there.
I can't go to preseason games just out of principle, but that'd be sweet if that was a regular season game, would it not?
Yeah, it would be. It would be. So look, I mean, the point I'm making though is, however much he plays in the preseason, the one thing that's hard to judge, one of his key attributes, you cannot judge in practice because it's not off. You're not getting these off-script situations. And even when you do, you go, all right, that's a sack, right? You're running around making a play. The play's over. You would have been out of the pocket running or throwing it away by then, something like that.
And that's part of the thing with football practice is even you saw some of the 7-on-7 stuff. It's like, yeah, I mean, you can't just hold on to the ball for 10 seconds. And this you probably see the same thing if you were watching Mahomes or Dak Prescott or Tom Brady. It's just a nature of the drill. Like sometimes the defense in a 7-on-7 shell drill is like the corners are going to shut your guys down, and then what are you going to do? But some of these drills are just a little unrealistic.
What'd you think about the when they set up stationary coach and threw their deep ball today?
I missed that one.
No, you were standing right there.
Oh. Yeah, I mean, all four guys. I mean, Jimmy might have the worst arm of the four, just pure power. I mean, Josh Rosen.
Rosen for sure. Sudfeld, I don't know. Sudfeld's massive, but
Trey's got a better arm than
6
Jimmy.
feet.
Rosen has
6'6".
a better arm than Jimmy. More power.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Rosen is big. He's huge, but he clearly, I don't know. So I'm fascinated to know the people that have really, like, I would love to have just beers with people that have been around him for a while. Like, what's he missing? Like, how is this guy can't even be a backup? What's going on here?
He's got a rocket.
Yeah.
His arm, if I said his arm's better than Trey Lance's, would you believe that?
It's hard to tell. I mean, in that situation, I bet in the games, would it look different? I don't know.
No, I know. I'm just, if they just both lined up and tried to throw it as far as they could.
Is he actually really, could he be decent? And
now, the deep ball he threw, he had the wind at his back, overthrew it by 15 yards, but.
Yeah, I mean, it's a 55-year-old beer drinking equipment guy. I mean, what are we talking
everyone
about?
else hit him. You know what it looked like? He kind of backpedaled and made a catch, and it looked like he was running Nat from the Chiefs Super Bowl. Wasp. Kind of looked. It was the same type of catch he was making.
Yeah.
But anyway, all right. We get also some. A couple other things to hit here. Oh, does Sleep Number fit right here?
Yeah.
Before we get on to some Jimmy Garoppolo, some Julio Jones stuff, some Javon Kinlaw, there's a lot of talk about Javon Kinlaw. Sleepnumber.com/ham. That's where it's at. Sleepnumber.com/ham. Right now, John, still going on. Discover proven quality sleep. Save $1,000 on the new Sleep Number 360 Special Edition Smart Bed during the Memorial Day sale. Only at sleepnumber.com/ham.
Yep. Quality sleep improves your recovery. So when you have a good night's sleep, like Guy and I get all the time because we have Sleep Number beds, you feel dramatically better the next day. Have you ever had a bad night's sleep and go, God, I feel awful? Well, that's because you're not sleeping well. And having the right bed, studies have shown, Sleep Number, you sleep better. It helps with anxiety. It helps with stress. It helps with just your mental well-being. We know that's a big deal. And part of the reason whenever I used to have bad sleep, it would ruin my day. Now I just get good night's sleeps all the time. Game changer. Sleepnumber.com/ham. I can't recommend it enough.
Get you some outside time, maybe a little sun if you can. Like today, I'm pretty sure I'm going to sleep good today. 12 to 16 ounces of water when you wake up, maybe before the caffeine. I've actually been doing that, and it's made me feel not only a little fresher, it makes my stomach feel better too. Sleepnumber.com/ham. Discover proven quality sleep. Save $1,000 on the new Sleep Number 360 Special Edition Smart Bed during the Memorial Day sale. Only at Sleep Number stores or sleepnumber.com/ham.
Do it.
You know who gets a lot of run when we do the little videos within the video is Geology. They get like 4 little ads within the YouTube stream. It's a good deal.
We're good partners.
So, yeah, we're here to push product, everybody. All right, let's talk about Garoppolo now. Garoppolo video in 3, 2. Hey, I'm Guy.
I'm John.
It's our YouTube channel. Subscribe to it. Give this video a like.
Yep, smash it down below as well. Subscribe to our podcast.
And check out geology.com/ham. 40% off.
Geology.com/ham. Face cream, face wash, you name it. Geology.com/ham.
All right, Jimmy Garoppolo's position. I do think you made a comment while we were at Niner OTA looking at the quarterbacks, the 4 of them now. And it did. I think you do. Every time I see Garoppolo in person, I'd kind of forgotten about it. I hadn't seen him in person in a while. But especially when he's next to Trey Lance, blue chipper. Josh Rosen don't forget, Josh Rosen's a blue chipper and looks like it. Nate Sudfeld, 6'6". I don't have the 225 minimum.
He's big.
230.
He's big.
He looks like Carson Palmer, humongous. You do when you see Jimmy, at least I do, and especially next to those bigger quarterbacks, you just have an appreciation for the career that he's put together to this point, because he does not look like those other guys, right? He is closer to Brady in terms of, I probably shouldn't even say that, but just in terms of like he's just, I shouldn't say that, but you know what I'm saying? Like he is just not, the odds are stacked against guys like Jimmy Garoppolo when they go to college, when they come out of college to be NFL quarterbacks.
I would probably do the comp. Now, this comp's probably bad, too, to Derek. I mean, Derek's brother was the number 1 overall pick. It's just got to be a little more random. Maybe like a Baker Mayfield. But even Baker played at Oklahoma. This guy played at a small school. And I mentioned it to you out there. I mentioned it to Marcus Thompson. Like, people shit on him. And listen, I can, too, as a player. But to be that small, I mean, relative to his position, and come from a small school and be this good is kind of a testament. Like, he is talented. You know, he's bringing something to the table here. Because, like, Josh Rosen can't hold Jimmy Garoppolo's chalk. And Josh Rosen was drafted 10 about 3 years ago, right? You couldn't hold Jimmy. If you played a game, it wouldn't even look the same. And it might, who knows? You can make all the excuses you want, but I would also imagine this, that most quarterbacks, and I remember listening to Mike and Mike back in the day, Golick would always get so fired up when quarterbacks would like complain after the draft when they drafted another quarterback, because every other position, and recruiting's the same way with this too, but in college, new quarterbacks show up every year. You could have the same quarterback room in the NFL for several years, right? The only reason the backup may change after like 3 or 4 is because that backup gets a little more money somewhere else, and it's just, we just draft a 7th rounder for cheapness. But most quarterbacks, I don't want to say you get put on scholarship because you earn that, right? Like Mahomes isn't on scholarship. He's earned being a star, or Brady, or even Lamar, or Russell, or whoever. But they never have to worry. Like George Kittle, if you told me within next year, they don't trade their 2nd rounder for Julio, and the dude they draft in the 2nd round is a tight end, like that's believable, right? With the 50th pick, the Niners take a tight end from Oregon. You'd be like, that is 100% on the table. And George would be like, oh, we got another tight end. You don't even, it's just part of the deal. The Niners, they take Debo. He has an incredible stretch in the playoffs, has like, I think 7 or 8 catches in the Super Bowl. Boom, 1st round wide receiver. And it's just part of the deal. Where with quarterback, the moment that guy comes, now this is a unique scenario, but it's a pressure like, whoa, with an incumbent, right? And Jimmy was an incumbent, and you feel it like, I just felt it out there. You know, they're like, God. And Jimmy's game, like, is always, he's not like a slow plotter. Like, he's pretty urgent when you see him at practice. Like, he's kind of short and quick. You know, just the way his movements. I felt like, I told Marcus this, probably mentions you, like this, every practice right now during the off season has to feel like a big deal to him, right? He's got this guy, because a lot of drills are, you know, for the beginning of practice to just be efficient. When you have a bunch of quarterbacks, you have multiple quarterbacks throwing to, one guy throws to the left, one guy throws to the right. For the last couple years, and Jimmy's been doing this, Jimmy was doing it next to Tom, but he knew like he wasn't Wally Pipp and Tom.
Right. The
last couple years, it's been CJ and Nick Mullins. Now he looks over in there and goes, not only is this guy the 3rd pick in the draft, they traded the farm for him, and clearly Kyle was drawing up pictures on the way back from Justin Fields' pro day. Like, how is Jimmy not reading that stuff? Like, that's got to be, which is good. I mean, we're all human. Like, maybe he's just numb to it being in the league for a while, but I'd be hard-pressed to not see him just feel like an immense amount of pressure. You could argue more pressure than he's ever had. Maybe that first year when they gave him a bunch of money felt like a lot. But this is different.
It's different. That's a different type of pressure. That is, all right, here's the pressure, go lead the team. There was no question about who, and he had just come off a really good stretch at the end of the year after they traded for him, right? So he had some momentum. He probably felt light on his feet.
People have been blowing him for like a couple years around the league. Everyone been trying to get him.
Yeah, look,
right?
He got to the Niners and it went great immediately. Yes, there was pressure that came with the contract, but it went really well right away. This is different. This is, you know, obviously everyone's always trying to, quote unquote, take your job. But back to what you said about the positional differences, when you're a quarterback, the other guys don't really get the opportunity to do it if you're the established starter, right? Josh Rosen comes in. There's no, Kyle Shanahan's not sitting there doing the practice plan trying to figure out how can we get a good look at Rosen so we can determine if he's better than Jimmy. There's none of that, right? This whole thing right now is just about waiting until Trey Lance is good enough to compete for the job with Jimmy Garoppolo. And right now on June 2nd and in July and in August and in September maybe still and on and on and on and on, there's a period of time where Jimmy Garoppolo has the advantage on Trey Lance because he's played in the NFL and he's played for this coaching staff with this offense. He knows Mike McDaniel. He knows Kyle Shanahan. He knows George Kittle. Like, he has an advantage. The question is, at some point, does Trey Lance do enough just to chip away and negate some of the advantage that Garoppolo has? And that's it might be a good pressure for Jimmy. Like, now this is all about how does he process it. But even if he doesn't read a single thing, listen to a single thing about Kyle Shanahan drawing up plays on the way back from Justin Fields' pro day, he knows that he walks in and the third overall pick is on his team and happens to play his position. So it's impossible to ignore. Impossible to ignore. But again, like right now, he's ahead. He's just ahead of the game. He's just, how is he not?
Yeah.
But that stuff can change fast.
But like you mentioned earlier with Trey, a lot of his is going to be like how he looks during game action. Because I watched him today just thinking like, look pretty good out there.
Yeah, but that's a lot of it with Jimmy too. Like a lot of Jimmy is because I thought I had that thought watching today. If I didn't know anything, would I think that Garoppolo's clearly better than Josh Rosen? No.
Yeah, it's if you went out there never having seen the team or not knowing any names, it would be hard to tell. Because that's the thing with practice. Like a backup quarterback can look really good, and with the Niners, it's their third and fourth quarterback who would just look the part physically. It'd probably be, if you went to an NBA, if you just went to like a Bobcats practice, they probably have some 9th, 10th, 11th guys that if they just walk through the room, you're like, holy shit, who the hell's that?
Because what is this thing in the end?
He's got bad hands. He doesn't know how to, he can't run straight really, but God, he looks the part getting off the bus.
Well, in the end, it's the games, John.
But, and you could argue Jimmy is kind of the opposite because he's not looks that sweet off the bus beside to chicks. Right, he's not physically imposing relative to quarterbacks.
Yeah, but one thing I think you noticed it the second he became a Niner. You noticed it if you went back and watched any of him in New England. He does get just on a basic level. He gets rid of the ball fast. Right.
Yeah.
He throws the ball quickly. That matters.
Well, to me, what put him on the map was release and just it
looks like Tom's.
Yeah,
his
just
short
boom.
step and his release.
Well, what do you think he worked on probably for several years there is how their offense, which benefits him because I think it could hurt a guy who doesn't have a massive arm, right? And Jimmy's arm is, I'd say, probably league average, slightly above league average. It's not bad by any means, but if you just go around the league, most guys have strong arms now.
Starting quarterbacks?
Yeah.
I don't think I'd call it league average. It's plenty good enough, but it's not above average.
Yeah, it's not. You wouldn't call him like, Josh Allen or Mahomes.
Well, but yeah, Derek Carr's got a stronger arm. Maybe he's a plus arm anyway. Derek's above average. I don't think Jimmy's below average.
Goffy, Cousins.
Yeah. Is Goff average? You think average arm?
It feels like he's getting worse.
His downfield throwing is good.
I'd say Cousins is a guy who felt like his arm's gotten a little stronger.
Yeah.
I think Cousins and Jimmy are pretty similar. Jimmy's probably a little more athletic. Now, Cousins' season last year.
Cousins throws I'd have to look at the deep ball feels like a bigger part of Cousins' game.
He's become more accurate in Minnesota for sure down the field. But I just watching Jimmy in practice didn't feel like he was that inaccurate. But in game situations, deep ball in the NFL is very hit or miss, right? It's not like a 50% proposition. So if you hit deep balls at 40% clip, not 28 or 30, it feels a lot different.
Yeah. Arm strength has not been the primary discussion when it comes to Garoppolo.
It's not to me. His negative has really been more reckless, as just the way obviously some of his injuries, with some of his decisions. He is,
which can be an arm strength conversation.
It's going to sound like a good thing, but I think if you don't have like the physical tools, being a gunslinger can get you in trouble.
Yeah.
Right. There's a reason no one had ever called Alex. If Alex Smith had tried to be a gunslinger, who's an example of a guy that can be a gunslinger and who historically has gotten himself in a lot of trouble has been Ryan Fitzpatrick. Because that's how he plays. Like, I don't give a shit. I'm just out here letting it rip. Well, it's like Ryan, you don't throw a 100-mile-an-hour fastball. So your ball, some of you are going to be part of Trey Lance, that ball that you talked about where he tried to fit it in. I always said this about Kaepernick. When you throw that hard, those guys play defense because they couldn't catch a wide receiver, right? So the DBs, most DBs, not named Deion Sanders, didn't aspire to be like, I'm going to be a shutdown corner. It's usually because their hands are bad. So when you throw really hard, it's easy to intercept Alex Smith's ball, right? It's easier to. Eli always threw a ball. While he had a strong arm, sometimes his ball would float. It's a pickable ball. See, to me, you got to be careful when you don't have a huge hose, and that's where Jimmy throws a lot of pickable balls and is just throwing some picks, right?
I think it was you that said it when they got him, or maybe it was early, that your comp for him was Romo. I think there's something to that.
Romo threw a pretty pickable ball, and he was a gunslinger.
He was definitely a gunslinger, and injuries were a problem for him too. But okay,
part of being a gunslinger isn't just hitting the ground right when you probably should. It's like, I can do a 360 here and get outside and roll around and get the guy to come back on the backside.
Yep.
And it works once, you're going to try it 7 more times.
Well, you and I always make fun of the quarterback when he throws it away out of the sideline and how much overpraise there is for that guy. Like, live for another down. Absolutely. Well, it's like, all right, it shouldn't be that complicated. But not everybody does it. Right? Not everybody does it consistently.
You remember the famous play on Monday Night Football, Donovan McNabb against the Cowboys, where he scrambled like 3 different ways and then he threw a deep bomb?
Ran back towards his own end zone. Yeah.
It's probably when we were like in college.
I do remember.
It was like scramble. It was like a 15-second play.
Well, he ended up like 30 yards behind the line of scrimmage, maybe more, right? He was in front of his own goal line, I think. Did he hit Deshaun?
No, it might have been like a
Freddie
Pinkston.
Mitchell?
Yeah, it was like 06, Pinkston? I thought. I would imagine it wasn't.
What was Pinkston's first name? George?
Todd.
Who's the guy that married the Playboy Playmate?
Oh, Hank
Baskett,
yeah. Super great guy.
I remember you always told me that Hank was a good guy.
Super high character.
Kendra Wilkinson.
Kendra, yeah.
They had a show. All right.
No.
Huh? Divorce?
I think they got a divorce. Yeah,
Julio Jones. We are recording this on June 2nd. We did, at one point, I think I turned to you during Niner OTA and said, just be a lot cooler if Julio was out here right now. We come out next week and Julio comes jogging out, right?
Do you think Julio's an off-season workout with the team guy?
If he had just been acquired, I bet he is. You know what I mean? Like, if he gets traded
for
today,
come out.
He's at OTAs next week or this week with whoever acquires him. Before we go any further on Julio, John, let's tell the people this podcast is brought to you in part by geology.com/ham, 40% off. This video, I should say.
Geology.com/ham. Get on it now.
Description, podcast descriptions down there. Podcast is down there. All right, like this video. Okay, so we thought we would kind of go through and rank the Julio concerns because there have been a couple different things I've seen today on Julio's physical traits. One thing I saw, 538 from ESPN Stats and Info. This is a chart. You don't need to dive too deep in it, but basically it's the orange line, for those of you who can see it, is Julio's speed, maximum speed on vertical routes over the last 4 years. And for those of you listening on the podcast, the maximum speed is about what it always has been in 17, 18, and 19. And well above the median wide receiver's max speed. But I was listening to Daniel Jeremiah and Bucky Brooks' podcast, and DJ said that he's heard from some people around the league that Julio's GPS numbers have been in decline in the last 3 years.
When do you think we're getting public GPS numbers for us to digest?
I mean, the second that Amazon AWS is ready to sponsor it.
Because I did hear something about the Alabama players with their GPS. And I was like, I haven't read that anywhere. They're like, oh, yeah, that's not out. That's not public information. It does matter. Because whenever I text my friends asking them questions about skill guys, they typically, and I think inside buildings, it's become a go-to. Like the 40 time I'm not saying the 40 time doesn't still matter, but they match that shit up now with the GPS. And I think over the last couple of years, they have learned, and I'm sure talking to the Pac-12 college coaches, how to take the GPS numbers and how to make it into digestible information. Because I think when they first got it, they didn't quite know what to do with it 4 or 5 years ago. Now they can just boom, boom. They can have years to compare it to. Because to me, forever it gets back to Billy Beane, right? And this is where I'm all for analytics. You sit in, he's still playing he just looks like he did in 2014. And I'm pounding the table, let's go get our guy. And it's like, well, actually, you bring up the numbers. For 7 of his 9 games last year, he was slower than he'd ever been, consistently on 30-plus snaps a game. And to me, when you can do stuff like that, I'm sorry, guy, when you factor in how much you have to pay to acquire him, which is a high draft pick. We were bullshitting out of practice. Biederman just said drop to 2 and a 4. I think it's fair to say it's going to be more than just a flat 2, potentially. So you factor in that, and then you factor in, like, listen, even a team like the Niners, like, they have cash. It doesn't matter. I'm not saying cap space, like they might have to cut a guy. I'm just saying they'd have no problem paying him the money. It's just more, wait, we're going to give a second-round pick for a guy that's well over 30, who's going to be, if we have him for 2 years, will be 34 when it's all said and done. For a guy that might be trending down, and now we have this hard information, like 1,000,000%, every team that has had these serious discussions, from the Titans to Seattle to the Rams to the Niners to the Colts to the Packers, this GPS number is probably a pretty big conversation, because I've texted a couple executives that I have never heard them mention it. Both of them mentioned it to me in the fall when I asked them about, like, how fast is Trey Lance? They're like, well, looking at the GPS, we guesstimate he's 4.52, right? They talk about it's become like you and I, we don't ever really talk about it. I don't really talk about it. But I think in the league, the last couple of years, it's become like part of the verbiage, part of the landscape.
Is that you don't have to worry. Like we're only talking about game speed when we're talking about GPS, right? We're talking about how fast does he play. I know it's been a point of discussion in college football too. I've talked to multiple coaches, head coaches, and assistant coaches in the Pac-12, for example, and outside of the league for that matter. But they know how hard you practice, John. It helps them with player accountability because every player wears a GPS device in their shoulder pads or in their jersey. I guess it's tucked into a little pocket in their jersey in practice. So we know a couple of things. We know, did John try hard today? Like, how hard did he try? We also know John tried really hard. Let's make sure we back John off tomorrow because John worked his ass off today, right? So, like, they're in it every day in practice. It is every day in practice. They know your
Coach,
GPS
I laid it all out on the line.
You cannot hide. It's like, well, John, you were 45th out of 45 in that sprint, and I wasn't even watching. There's no, like, coach had his back turned, so you get to go easy because he gets the GPS numbers. So they know how, and they know it's not just about speed. It's about, like, effort output. So to me, the question is, once you start getting every team can get the same information, right? Or it's not just the Falcons have the proprietary information about their games because that's the device their guys are wearing. But when it's just, Sports View or whatever theirs is called, and everybody can get access to everybody's information. Now, I do think, like, watching
the individual team information for practice, you would never give that out because you would never want anyone to know for trades and stuff, right?
Right.
The
but
game
also,
stuff, we all have access.
We went to nobody, if they were wearing the GPS today, nobody was maxing out, right, in an NFL practice.
Yeah, no.
But yeah, that's significant. Now, I still watch the guy. Like, one thing is when I look at the Niners,
Kittle. Every time I looked at Kittle, he was hauling ass.
That's true. Kittle probably did hit. He did red line it. That's a good point. But that's part of what I was thinking about watching them today. You and I were talking about this on the sideline. Is like, how many of the Kittles are out there? Trent Williams isn't there. Nick Bosa's not there. So, they look different from just a blue chip NFL star perspective. Now, I'm not saying you should chase stars, but they don't look like the early, like, the primo Harbaugh Niners with Navarro and Justin Smith and Patrick Willis and Alden.
My pushback on the Julio thing would be, I will. Trust me, for business, bring them on in. I'm cool with it. But if I was in their shoes, they kind of just went down that well with Trent Williams, and it's worked out well, pretty well. I mean, we'll see. Actually, it's going to be judged now. Does he play 90% of the games the next 3 years? You're in pretty good shape. Is he a guy that's battling some injuries? Like, it's still unknown. How many superstars who you still think have a lot left in their early 30s do you want to kind of put all your chips in the middle of the table? I'd rather see if I can get use that free agent money on a younger player potentially. I just think you could easily talk yourself out of this, given that you don't have a lot of picks. If you just were able to get Trey Lance at pick 12, and you said they gave up a second and a fourth, fuck, who cares, right? You got other ones you can maneuver. They just don't have that much maneuverability to add sweet guys. Because we know the other thing with free agency, the pool shrinks every year. Because most times, sweet 26-year-olds aren't just like, check out the free agent class, loaded with dudes. Like, that's not usually the way it works. I would say the best players the last several years that have changed teams have been through quote-unquote free agent trades, right? Jalen Ramsey, Jamal Adams, Stephon Diggs.
DeForest Buckner.
Dudes in 25 to 28 range, Khalil Mack, that are sweet that change teams, do it with compensation.
DeAndre Hopkins.
Yeah, they aren't just like, can you believe the Cardinals signed DeAndre Hopkins in free agency? No. The Bills, when they broke
Odell
off
Beckham.
Stephon Diggs, even the Cowboys. Like, remember when they signed Amari Cooper? Yeah, with a first-round pick.
Yeah,
Think about all the names we're listing, guy. All these primetime names that I think the Niners would be licking their lips over. Every guy we listed. All of them changed teams via a trade with a first-round pick.
Yeah, we're young.
But they were young. That's
Younger.
my thing.
Yeah.
Like, the Niners would essentially be doing the same thing. Listen, would Belichick do this? Like, if in his Super Bowl teams, right? Well, first rounder or second rounder for a guy that's 32. To me, you got to factor the age.
Yeah.
Now, he may end up trading for him, but I think he's a little desperate.
Does he? Part of
Non-desperate
this is what
Belichick.
do you have at the position that this person plays? Like, for the Niners, if you told me George Kittle and Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel, the three of them each average 15 and a half games, right? So two of them play 16, one of them plays 15, whatever. They're playing the full year.
The Niners would sign a check right now for that.
Yeah, if I told you that, you'd go, we don't, it's like Julio would be, but you don't really need to do that. But that's not, historically, Deebo Samuel doesn't play.
Well, how did Ayuk look out there at practice today? He's injured.
Let me check my notes. They got a lot of receivers out there the Niners have a lot of receivers out there running around. Today at practice, you're right. They got a lot of guys out there running around who are not the guys that they expect to be making plays on Sunday. Juwan Jennings made some plays. Mohamed Sanu made some plays. But those are not, right? So, like, if you're pro Julio based on that, and you would counter the point that I've been making for a month, which is receiver is not the position where you lack the talent. I think the counterpoint to that point that I've made is, well, yeah, that's great today, but if we look at the last 2 years, obviously Ayuk only had the 1 year, but those guys all being healthy, that's not the way it's been. So you're going to make the same mistake again? I understand that point.
They did lose Kendrick Bourne, but I think Kyle would look at it and go, I'm not saying obviously comparing Julio and Kendrick Bourne, but part of having offensive gurus on your, like, that's where you spend a lot of money on, with Kyle, with McDaniels, with Welker, I think who's been there in a couple years now, who I'm sure Kendrick Bourne would tell you all helped him develop as a player. That's where those guys like Juwan Jennings, whoever Juwan Jennings is, it could just be an undrafted free agent that we don't even recognize yet, the Watkins kid, whatever, that in 2 years we go, that's what you create a third wide receiver. You have to be able to do stuff like that when you pay your head coach, who's an offensive guy, $10 to $12 million. Like, that's part of
James. Did you say Richie
James?
James?
One thing is, we talk a lot about Kelsey and Hill. They Sammy Watkins didn't live up to his contract for him, and it didn't matter because Pringle and Hardiman and just like all these guys, they just develop, right?
Yeah.
Just develop.
Yeah.
I don't know who, sour cream and onion Pringle is, but every time I look up, he's hauling ass. Now Hardiman was a third-round pick.
Was he from LSU?
Pringle?
From? No, McCole Hardman.
Maybe La Tech. I thought he ran really fast. That's all I remember about him coming out. Like, really, like 4.32.
Georgia, second rounder.
Second, okay. Yeah.
Who's this Hardman guy? Oh, second round pick out of the SEC?
But I thought he was third. So my point was, they invested in him clearly. But they're like, there's pressure on Hardman. Like, can the guy become like the number 2 now? That it's kind of like is he that guy? I don't know. We're gonna find out. But eventually, like, if he's not, he'll kind of get passed, right? Is he just a special teams guy? He's definitely. I'll give Hardiman this. Like, you watch the Chiefs, Hardiman's a player.
Yeah.
Now, I just don't. Yeah, he's been able to kind of blend in with the other guys. Can he take a solid role? Can he become like a 70, 80 catch guy? Because the Niners, need Ayuk and Debo to just establish. Can you guys both become 75 catch guys?
Right.
Both of you.
Hardman, 26 catches to 41 catches. Those were his first 2 years. So is he?
Do you think it's unrealistic to think Hardman's got a 68 catch season?
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, it's like,
Well, can Juwan Jennings give him 32 catches this year?
well, John, if you told me Juwan Jennings was active for half the season, I'd say that's a pretty big success. Let alone,
but there is going to be, and it might be a guy that we don't. It might be the fourth undrafted free agent that we haven't even brought up yet. There is going to be a guy that we do not know that has 32 catches on.
But that could be Richie James, and you'd go, we do know who that is.
Okay, yeah, but yeah, that's fair. I forgot about him.
No, but I mean, you're right. It could be Juwan Jennings.
They're going to need another wide receiver.
Juwan Jennings took one to the house, John, on Tuesday OTAs.
Yeah, I know, because he pointed and then he danced. And then about 15 minutes later, he made his way back to the huddle. Maybe he knew that was his last rep.
It was a sweet play. Like beats. I couldn't tell. It's hard to tell. They're on the other field. It's like, was he beating him to the pylon? There was no pylon there, but it was a fun play. One of our takeaways watching Niners OTA was like, why would you boycott this? 71 degrees.
Well, it's like, Golf Subpar had Xander Schauffele on, and he's like, the one thing I play a lot of pickup rounds with Phil, the guy's just a golf addict. It's like, of course, he's sweet at golf. Like, he's been sweet at golf now for 30 years. Like, it reminded me watching Kittle out there. Like, George, do you want to just keep lifting dumbbells or come out and put those to work and just eviscerate every dude that lines up over you? Yeah, I want to fucking play some ball because I'm sweet at football.
Right.
Like, for George, like, I understand Trent Williams. Like, well, we don't wear pads. I don't really get to shove anyone around. I'll just train on my own. For George, though, like as a tight end or a wide receiver, even as a running back, I can understand, like, this kind of sucks. It's all kind of fake. But as a wide receiver, if you're legit, you're kind of, wouldn't you say OTAs are made for the skill guys on the outside, tight end included, to just cook? I mean, it's their time. You can't get tackled. So George is making these catches all over the place, or Juwan Jennings. It's sweet. It's like, this is what I do. I catch. And I try to score touchdowns.
I know it's not shocking to anybody. This is not breaking news.
It's like you just get to hit drivers all day if you're a golfer or something. It's fun.
Yeah, just shoot.
You do not get hit. Basketball. You do not get hit.
Kittle looked really fresh. Again, that's not if you hadn't seen him, you'd assume he was fresh. It's June 2nd, but I just thought
at the bit to play.
He looked fresh. Yeah. He looked any practice. One, it's a reminder too, having not seen practice in over a year. He practices the way you want your best players to practice too, right?
Yeah,
because you could, to your point, just have fun but kind of go through the motions, and he's active. He's active.
I just think in general in football, and they say this was just in sports in general, but with basketball and they don't practice anymore. And in baseball, you just got to play well. In football, you practice so much when your best players are just like, goddamn, Fred and George, calm down. It's anyone else going to loaf? They said that for 20 plus years about Tom. And I remember my friends, when I got fired from the Eagles the next year, because Chip and Bill were buddies, they did a joint practice. I remember like, what is Tom like in practice? Like, God, it's incredible. He just would stop practice. He'd be screaming at guys. He'd tell our defensive coordinator to back the fuck up. It was just like, it was a clinic. And the way he's talked about in these drills is like, watching Tom is watching like remember the Space Jam part of Michael Jordan when he brought everyone to train with him? It was like, God, Michael's just dunking over people. When your best players practice the hardest and are most serious, I do think I noticed that with Jimmy today. No, you're the quarterback. It's always like there's just a urgency to his game.
He was the one when it was time to assign a spot to the stagnant coach or equipment manager. He's the one that told him it was Garoppolo that told that guy where to stand, right? Yeah. It wasn't another coach that said, all right, go stand 15 yards over there on the hash mark. It was Jimmy that said, back up, take a step over.
In fairness, Jimmy's been running the drill with the team before.
No, he was just doing again, this is just
I know what you're saying.
That's the price of admission, as we like to say on this show. But you still have to do that stuff. Not everybody does do that stuff.
Well, and they did. I mean, Buckner was clearly that guy. I bet Ballard would be like, he's incredible at practice, right? So when you replace that, you need to have guys on your roster that can maintain that and are good enough, right?
Yeah.
If you get rid of your best players that do that. That's where Bill, always getting rid of guys, we never got rid of Tom, right? If your quarterback is that guy, you're in pretty good shape. Imagine being like Packer practice today. You're like, where's our MVP? Fucking in Hawaii, protecting Miles Teller from getting beat up in the bathroom.
At what's the name of that restaurant? It's got great banana cream pie.
Monkey Pod.
Monkey Pod, yeah. You been to Monkey Pod?
That's the restaurant he got hit in. You see that?
Wait, Miles Teller got whoa, what?
Miles Teller got punched.
When was this?
After last weekend.
See, I recognized when they took the photo of Miles, I could tell that was the Monkey Pod in Kapalua.
Yeah,
because I sat on that patio.
He was in the bathroom and someone punched him.
It's awful. I like Miles Teller. Why was he punched? It must have been that day.
Yeah, I don't know.
Unless actually they probably went back to Monkey Pod a lot. I'm guessing where they stayed. It's right by the shopping center in Kapalua. It's right there. Yeah. So it's a pretty active spot.
What's the main drink over there? I want to say pina coladas, but it's not that. It's whatever the main
margarita?
No, pina colada. Oh, Mai Tais. Oh. Their Mai Tais are elite.
I'm big on their banana cream.
Food, the tacos were great. That place is elite. It's not cheap.
I missed the Miles Teller punching.
Only because I saw Miles Teller punch TMZ. I'm like, well, he's there with Rodgers. They must have split up for the day.
Did Aaron punch him?
Well, I was thinking, where's Aaron to get his back?
Yeah.
Could it be a Packer fan? Could it be a Packer fan? You're fucking ruining my team. What if I told you that it was Gutekunst? Gutekunst went over there and he beat up Miles Teller. Would that break the internet? If Brian Gutekunst has been charged with hitting Miles Teller, would he get suspended?
Would Rodgers be like, I kind of hated you, but I'm kind of impressed now.
Sometimes you got to think outside the box.
Nothing else is working.
Like Gabby,
John. Right now, folks, here's what you do. You go to Gabby.com/ham. Put your auto insurance and home insurance policies to the test. It is free. The one true comparison platform with real rates. We've done it. Gabi, Gabby.com/ham. That's Gabby.com/ham.
Yep. Here's the thing. We all, use various insurance companies and spend way too much. That's where Gabby, they come in. They take all the insurance companies, you put in what you want, what you're looking for. They give you a quote from every insurance company. So what's the key? To save money. Gabby customers, you and I did it. You and I think when we did the thing back in the fall, we were on the best insurance. But a lot of people aren't because, I was the same way. You don't know. You just pick a rate. You just do some car insurance, health insurance, whatever. Gabby customers save up to $961 per year. That's net income, right? Because you're paying for your car insurance with your income that's already been taxed. That's a lot of money, guy. Adds up quick.
GABI, Gabby, means get a better insurance. And like John said, when you enter your information, if you have the best rates, it'll tell you have the best rates. So then you got the peace of mind to go with it. But I think we, like most people, you have insurance. Whatever you have, you haven't looked at it. If you haven't gotten a new car or a new home, and who knows how long you haven't updated it and given it a look just to make sure that you're still getting the best stuff. Gives you an apples-to-apples comparison. What you have with 40 of the top insurance providers like Progressive, Nationwide, Travelers, all in one place. It's free to use. And they'll never sell your info for no spam or robocalls. Put your policy to the test like I did, like John did. Get a better insurance with Gabby. Totally free to check, and there's no obligation. Go to Gabby.com/ham. That's Gabi.com/ham. Gabby.com/ham. Podcast also brought to you by our friends at Geology. Geology.com. Geology.com/ham, where you get 40% off any trial set, and you can pre-order the SPF 30 unisex face sunscreen. I put some on before I went out too. Actually, I didn't, but anyway, go pre-order it now, John. I put on the not the sunscreen, but the face cream in the morning face cream.
I always put on the face cream, or the sunscreen, face and head. When I went to Arizona, I did not put on the back of my neck. Neck peeled. Awful. Key. SPF saves your skin because the older you get, like when I was 10, 12, skin can handle it. I've noticed late in my 20s, definitely in my 30s, skin gets a little thinner. You're just, we're working men. We're inside a little bit more than we used to be in our youth. We don't, or you're not used to the sun. When you go out, SPF, keep sun marks for when you're way older, keeps your skin looking young. It works. I mean, I use SPF literally every day through my friends at geology.com/ham.
We got the personalized regimen is what you get. So you tell them I got oily skin, I got dry skin, I got bags under my eyes. You answer a few questions, bing, bang, boom, and then they customize to you. Great products from Geology, GEOLOGIE.com/ham. And like we said, you can pre-order the SPF 30 unisex face sunscreen. I think it starts shipping this week or next. 20% on that as well. Pre-order it now and save 20% as it gets ready to ship. Geology.com/ham.
Geology.com/ham. Ricardo in the comments said great Mai Tais at Monkey Pod.
Great Mai Tai Monkey Pod.
They're like a milkshake, but with alcohol, but not quite a milkshake because they're just.
EKB's
I never drink drinks like that either.
Because there's no reason to be embarrassed.
But I'm just saying, like, if you came to Walnut Creek and we went to the rooftop bar, one time I saw like their pina colada. I'm like, I'm feeling pina. It's just not the same in the States. I know technically it's the States there too, but it's not. It's the island.
I know what you mean. Yeah.
The island, their fruity drinks, it's the fresh fruit. I don't know. It's the ice. I don't know what
pineapple.
it is.
Yeah.
They do not taste the same over here.
EKBZ on YouTube says guys that punched him said he owed like $60K for some back wedding service. Miles Teller didn't get married. He's been married, right? That's an old. So maybe he got married in Hawaii like 6 years ago. Someone's been trying to track him down, can't find him. Now Rogers starts posting Miles Teller's face on the internet, and they're like me, I know exactly. He's at Monkey Pod because it's obvious. If you know where there's a Monkey Pod, South Maui, but I know where that Maui, that's the Kapalua Maui Monkey Pod. That's where he was. You can tell in a second, and then they tracked him down. Like,
well, I know this.
Like he came out of witness protection.
Once upon a time, no ill will if the guy's listening. It helped us. Big picture all worked out. But we probably owed, what do you think, about 20K total between the two of us? Decent amount.
Yeah.
Maybe might have been 18. It's like a 9. Maybe it wasn't 10 each, but it was 8 or 9.
That guy's helping us out right now with something else, but
yeah. So I got exactly. I mean, as everything worked out, I get it. Trying times, but I remember telling you like. Historically, when people owe people money is when it's not even just like the drug game. It's just life. When people owe other people money for services, legal services.
Rendered.
If I'm just
services rendered.
If I'm just a lawnmower and someone owes me $800, like how do I get that money back? Most human beings are not super rich people that are like, I'm going to take them to civil court. It's like, pay me my fucking money. I understand. I mean, the mob got the most extreme. Like you owed, they just killed you. Though, like, I'm not saying you validate that, but if someone owes you $60,000, punch them in the face, like, I get it.
I need a detail, John. How you skip out on $60,000 is a lot of money.
Well, I just think in some of these situations that if you're doing a wedding, let's say in Hawaii, and I bet he did a really, really expensive wedding, if it gets up to, even for him, money's all relative. Let's say he has $1 million wedding. I bet he's looking at something like, that's bullshit. I'm not paying that. It's just an easy one. He's like, well, we fucking did it. You agreed to it. And well, like, whatever. We're not going to be back here. I can just see it's one of those, like, we're not going to get him his money.
Yep. And then the next thing, 8 years later, karma comes in the form of you're taking a piss. Not even thinking about your $60K.
I've always
about you're on top
this.
of the world hanging out with Aaron Rodgers.
In life, if you say you're going to pay someone and you do business with them and you don't pay them and you have the money, like, you're a scumbag. Bottom line. Now, there are individual instances.
This is a personal philosophy of yours.
Yeah, but I think it happens the more and more. Just how many humans just that do other things that we, that don't, or just in completely different businesses. Like, you hear some shady things that happen.
Absolutely.
Like, some people are just, I don't know if they can just, I can't sleep at night. Like, let's say, like, I had like $10,000 or whatever and hadn't paid you, and then we just like broke up, and I never, like, some people could just like, go their separate way. Like, I would just stop picking up your calls. Like, that happens all over nonstop all the time in business. And there's always that one guy, and you hear like, that guy's a bad guy. Usually when the bad guy, it's usually over money. It's not like, he gave me funny looks in the hallway. No, it's usually because he's like, that guy. I remember when I was in Fresno, there was this really rich guy that everyone called a scumbag because he was always looking to fuck over people. And when I say fuck over people, do deals with them and then somehow get out for less money. That's what they're talking about, right? AKA not paying them. To me, those are the scummiest humans, non like crazy criminals, but like that's just it's kind of like ingrained in them, and I think they justify it in their mind.
They absolutely justify it in their mind. I got sophomore year. Roommate owes me $1,000. Yeah, sophomore year, $1,000. Like PG&E bills, that kind of thing.
What year do you think that is? Like 04, 05?
Yeah, 05.
You know what you should do? You should just factor in interest and send him like a $27,000.
I can't try. I don't know where he is, what happened to him. But for a while, I'd see him around. Like I remember, I ran into him in the parking lot at Doghouse Grill, and I was like, "Hey, man." He's like, "Oh yeah, I'll get back to you next week." Like, okay. Never heard from him again.
You should find him on Venmo. Find him on Venmo, and send him like a crazy number, like $19,743, and you go the PG&E bill plus interest from 05.
Yep. If I just put this in an IRA 20 years ago, who knows how much money that would be, right? Compounding interest, John. I could just compound interest, that calculator. You ever looked at a compounding interest calculator before?
I used to have. Did you ever have one of those crazy calculators, the TI 77s or whatever they were?
TI 86, yeah, Texas Instruments.
I didn't even know how to use that thing, but I had it.
For sin and what was it? What's it? Sin and so sine and cosine.
Those are underrated parts about being a parent, where it's just like, yeah, hey, this is high school. They say I need this calculator. I don't even like this class, and then the parent just has to pay $90 for this instrument that like the kid's not even like. That's just think how many just add-ons over your life. Underrated how much children cost.
I haven't seen you using the TI-86 around here at all.
I'm gonna be on my kids. Like, can you please use that calculator when you're doing your homework?
All right. Let's get to Javon Kinlaw, John. Few quotes about Javon Kinlaw, which we've read some quotes about him since practice ended. We both just watching him, having seen him before, but you see him, that human being in person, wearing the like padding on top of the helmet. It looks like you're wearing like a turtle on your head, and he's just humongous and athletic. So let's get into him because there've been a few interesting. He became a talking point after Niners OTAs.
Yeah. Smash that like button. Subscribe to the page. Check out the podcast below in the description. Also, our friends at geology.com/ham. I got to give you credit because you're like, look at him, and you pointed to him across the field, and Armstead, I think, had walked by a little earlier. And the difference is Armstead, who is massive, even for NFL standards, right? He's tall for like NBA standards. He's an enormous human being. First round pick, first round body for sure. So is Kinlaw. And I think Buckner is closer to Armstead of when you were around those guys, they're just long. Like they're 300 pounds, but if you just saw him like, at a NBA game, I know he's a big Kings fan from Sacramento, he would probably just look huge, like tall, but he's not fat or he's not, like a defensive tackle. Very proportionate. Kinlaw to me is much more old school. Like those two guys look like they're from the Pac-12. That guy looks like he's from the Deep South, played in the SEC. His ass is enormous. His legs are huge.
Calves are huge.
He is fucking. He could probably play at 340 pretty easily. Here's the thing: when they drafted Buckner, Buckner was not a project. He played his ass off at Oregon. He was, I don't want to say a can't miss, but it felt like he was the equivalent of like Patrick Surtain this year, maybe Minka a couple years ago. Like, I don't know if he's going to be a Hall of Famer, but I know he ain't going to suck. Like, this guy's going to – that was how all my friends that did the SEC talked about Patrick Surtain. Like, does he have elite speed? Is he going to be an elite player? I don't know. He's going to be solid, though. No one will regret having that guy on his team. I think Minka's become a lot like that and probably even a little better. But Buckner was like that immediately. He was just like, you want him on your team. He's solid. You feel good about it. I think a lot like you feel that with offensive linemen a lot, right? Like, I don't know if this guy's an elite player, but he's going to be our starting guard for a decade. You feel fine. They do need Kinlaw because he has a high and a low because he was so raw coming in and he ended up at junior college and then he played for a couple years at South Carolina. Their team wasn't that good, but his best games the year he was drafted, I remember people saying the two games that really stood out were Georgia and Florida. And I think the Clemson game was like when they played the three blue chip programs who were all like top 10 teams, he stood out. And a couple times last year, like when he would make a play, his plays would be like, holy shit, right? Which is like throw a guard, engulf the running back. Can they get a guy? I don't even think you can like I'm not even saying best case be like a Pro Bowler, but be a guy where you go, this guy has Pro Bowl ability over the next couple of years when this season ends. I think that's what they're looking for this year. A more consistent player, a more like, you're just naturally going to have bad games. Because I was thinking, listen to McVay talk and, just your dumb moments as a coach. As a coach, like every week leading up to the game, there are going to be some weeks where you're just more tired, where you're not having clarity with your game plan, and other weeks where just things hit when you're watching film. No different as a player. Some weeks you probably feel really fresh. Other weeks you're like, God, I don't feel loose. Think about like playing golf. Some weeks you're like, God, my swing feels pretty good. Other weeks you're like, I don't even know what I'm doing. I think being a rookie has to feel most of the time for most guys, not like Wirfs and, Herbert, where it's just going well, where you're just like, I bet more than half the season, you're like, God, this is crazy. Like, this is a lot. And I think now there's no excuse for that. You know what you're getting into. Can you just have 10 good games out of 17? Like 10 games where you're like, God, Kinlaw was fucking good.
Yeah, and 7 just solid. I mean, you're allowed to have bad games.
Yeah, you're allowed to have some bad games.
I thought.
But I mean, a couple of those 10 where you have like a sack and a half and a couple TFLs, where you just go like, he was like one of the better. You drafted him 14, guy.
Yeah, look, well, to me, he's there to be powerful. He's there to get after the quarterback. The pick 6 he had against the Rams last year was a pretty telling play because it was soft hands and then effortless running for 30 yards, right? Do you remember that play?
Not really.
Let me see if I can find the video. It was just so his physically, you look at him and go, this guy is about power, which obviously he is, but there's so much more to to just his basic abilities. Hold on, here we go. Go ahead. You want to say something?
Well, I think when you look at the best of Buckner and the best of Armstead is a twitchier player than Buckner. But Buckner's relentless energy and consistent toughness. Oh, yeah.
Soft hands. We're for those of you on the podcast, we're watching. And then
you're just saying watch him move.
Yeah, like that's just not.
Yeah. To me, he can be a hybrid of the two of those guys. I think he can be a better player than Armstead. Will he probably ever be Buckner? That'll be hard. But I think he can bring a combination of the two of them. He's a little twitchier and a big-time athlete. Like Buckner, relative to Armstead's the way better athlete than Buckner, right? But if you talk to the people at Oregon, Buckner was clearly the better player. But Armstead, if we could ever get Armstead to do this, well, I think he's not, But his God-given gifts are just so freakish that even when you just see Armstead out there at practice, you're like, this guy looks pretty sweet. Like, I understand why Kyle and Sala were like, yeah, we want this guy around. Yeah. Like, I do get it. But ideally, when you can get two guys like to go with Bosa, their defensive line, because if Armstead can become your third best defensive lineman, you're in pretty good shape. Because when they had probably the top defensive line in the league 2 years ago when they made the Super Bowl, that's what he was, right?
Right.
Bosa and Buckner were clear 1-2 in some order depending on the game. And then Armstead just like I get to rotate over here, get on your weak link.
And that's way better than most teams' third best passer. I mean,
God,
maybe better than their second.
Every team in the league would sign up for Armstead as their third best defensive lineman. Now, ideally not $17 million. They'd like him. What do you think Armstead is, in all fairness to him? Like a $10 million player, right?
Yeah, I was going to say 12. Yeah, 10.
Yeah, okay. If you got him for like 4 years, $50 million, 25 guaranteed, you feel pretty good. But that's just not what I'm not saying if he would have hit the open market, someone would have given him.
You're saying from a productivity standpoint.
Yeah. And, Bosa ideally becomes a $100 million player, and Kinlaw just looks like a guy this year that you go, this guy can be a guy one day that you pay a lot of money. I mean, you drafted him just where you drafted him. I mean, they really between those three guys, I mean, what was Armstead, like a 15th overall, 17th overall? Like, I mean, those three guys are all obviously
was drafted higher than that.
Well,
what time was it at the Hooters with you, me, and Ricky Waters when I said I didn't like the pick?
I thought he was in the teens. I thought because they traded, I thought he was like 17.
Yeah, 17.
Back. So they have a second overall pick. They have a 17th overall pick and a 14th overall pick. That's a lot of capital.
Second overall. That's what you said. Yeah.
Wouldn't you say just
two
three
premium
guys
first rounders? Yeah, absolutely. 3 first rounders on your D line. But that's how. Like, go look at some of the best defensive lines. That's usually how they kind of look, right?
Yeah.
Right now, if we went and looked at Washington's defensive line, like I don't think Chase Young's the only first rounder on that defensive line, right?
No, they got a couple other ones. Yeah.
Like where
That's
was?
Well, even once they got Khalil Mack, they had Floyd before he went to the Rams. So even when he was good with the Rams, like, yeah, ideally you always have to have a couple first-round defensive linemen. The best defensive lines aren't like, we got 4 7th-rounders, we just play our ass off, right? We just play with gusto. It's like, well, you can only gusto Trent Williams and Quentin Nelson so long, right?
Here's a couple of quotes from Wednesday's post-practice. Samson Ebukam, the transfer, John, from the Rams. I feel like he's going to have an all-pro year the way he's going right now, instead of Kinlaw. D'Amico Ryans, new defensive coordinator, he's going to take a huge jump this year. He's been doing an awesome job. I can already see how much better he's gotten in the couple of weeks we've been together. Well, if that's true, then that's, I believe that he means it, and that's what he's seeing. I'm just saying if that's what it actually translates to on the field, a huge jump. If you get a huge jump, then you've got that you combine those two comments, then you do have a Pro Bowl or an All-Pro level player.
I'm not trying to, pee in the pool here. I would imagine if we just canvassed the land of every training camp, did a lot of stuff like that's being said about their first-round pick previous year, right?
Oh, that's why I take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
But, it's to me, it goes back to if they
He's
weren't.
huge.
The fact that they're saying those things doesn't mean that's what's about to happen. But there have been first-round picks where no one is saying that thing about them going into their second year, right? Yeah. And we do view him as a guy that, he was obviously good enough to be drafted as high as he was, but there was also just, you hoped, some year 2, year 3 development with him. That's part of what the expectation was when they got him. Like, fill in DeForest Buckner's shoes year 1 is not usually what anybody does.
What do you think about a little Wiseman-y? You knew it was for the bigger picture, right? But you knew the equivalent, like you just weren't, where do you ever going to get a guy that looks like that for the Niners again, right? To me, it was the right pick. Yeah. Like I swinging on an offensive lineman. Now you go, would they have rather had Wirfs? Could they have taken Wirfs? I mean, you could have gone back and forth over that because obviously Tampa wouldn't trade Wirfs for Kinlaw right now, right? They would not. If the Niners could do it all over.
No Trent Williams, Wirfs.
And just McGlinchey, and then you'd have a bunch of extra money to do other shit. Yeah. But in fairness, it's always easy to play that game the year after. Well, if you just would have, if we could redo it, Russell Wilson would have gone 1. Well, it's like, yeah, he went in the 3rd round, so it's easy to do a quote unquote redo. If we could do the 99 or 2000 draft, no way Brady lasts till 199. Well, no shit. Wasn't Montana a 3rd rounder? And listen, it's one of the more just casual sports conversations, and it always has been our entire life, and it continues to be. There's never been a redraft or a retrade in the history of football or just sports in general. If we would have redrafted that 84 basketball draft, Michael does not make it till 3. We know.
By the way, John, a few YouTube things here and then some other comments. Eric Ocean on YouTube says, watching these two talk themselves into Trey Lance each episode will never not be entertaining. I can tell you, it's pretty easy to talk yourself into Trey Lance. So we're glad you're watching every episode. No comment on that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not anointing him as some great player. I'm just saying physically you just saw the talent. I would have said the same probably if Justin Fields was out there. I don't know how I would have reacted seeing Mac have a weaker arm than Jimmy. The other thing that would have been pretty telling, right? In part of it, you and I have seen Jimmy so many times at a practice setting that I just accustomed to what he looked like. But Mac next to Jimmy, and especially if Mac was a little smaller than Jimmy, and then those other two guys are towering over him, like, what the hell is going on?
Well, that's what Mitchell Barsati, which I wonder any relation to a former Fresno State quarterback, Mark Barsati, said tough to tell how big he is next to Sudfeld. I mean, no, that's the first thing you look, you go, that's the first thing I did was I went to the roster. I was like, wait, Sudfeld's how big?
Well, I told you that, the thing with Sudfeld, he's the Sam Hinkie of football. They put him in the 4th quarter of Sunday Night Football, and everyone for 3 straight days said the Eagles fucked everybody and tanked the season. But they didn't say that because of, the Eagles' game plan, the plays they called. They strictly said that because of that human being.
Right.
So this guy walks in, he's like, yeah, I'm the guy that they think they tanked the game for. Me. Not because we ran it every time, just because they literally put me in the game. That's why, remember the Giants players were all tweeting like, this is Bush League. It's like, just for him. He was making $3 million. It's like, what are they paying me for?
The internet treated him like a scrub.
I can only hold the clipboard? Now, he didn't look good in the game, in fairness, but he'd never played.
From Modesto. I didn't know that about him.
Nate Sudfeld?
Modesto Christian High School. That's California, for those of you not in the state.
I was thinking about this driving to practice, just thinking about Jimmy and Trey, right? Obviously, they did not come. Well, I mean, one's from Chicago, one's from Minnesota, and they both went to Division I AA schools. Sudfeld's a good example, right? If people knew how good an NFL player that's going to have a 6-7 year NFL career, is there any chance on God's green earth that a Pac-12 school does not offer that guy coming out of high school? He just would have ended up in the Pac-12.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised given his size.
Maybe he wasn't that good. I'm fascinated. I did not know he was. I would have assumed he was from the Midwest. But like you understand, wherever Jimmy went to high school, if I remember correctly, it was a smaller high school, and I think he played. He was like going both ways. But like if you were Penn State or Ohio State or Michigan, you would come through. You probably not offering him. But obviously, looking back, like Jimmy Garoppolo could have played in the Big Ten, right? He would have started probably for the majority of the teams.
Yeah. But you just don't. You're projecting so much that You just also have to start with the physical tools with these guys.
Yeah, and who knows? The other thing that's hard is like maybe Jimmy's like, well, I got to play right as a true freshman or redshirt freshman. Where if you go to Ohio State, you start fourth in the depth chart, and they keep bringing 5 stars. You were just kind of a lower level recruit. It's harder for you to kind of break that perception. Like Jimmy, if he had been a 7th round pick and not a 2nd round pick, who knows if he becomes Jimmy Garoppolo? Because Jeff Schwartz thing is always, and it is true, it doesn't determine your success or failure, but it does give you more opportunities when you're higher. If you're like a top 50 pick,
there's no doubt. They are less likely to cut you.
I think other teams, Jimmy's a bad example because he played, but a guy that's just quote unquote a bust with a team immediately is getting a job if he was a 1st round pick with another team. I don't mean getting to play, but another team is acquiring him. Dante Pettis is a good example. Like, you can look terrible. I mean, awful. It's like, we cut you. Immediately claimed. If Dante Pettis is an undrafted free agent, and it's like, just let him hit. He'll clear waivers.
Josh Rosen.
Yeah.
If he's a 4th round quarterback.
I'd say he's the opposite. It's crazy how his career – because one takeaway I had with those two guys – like, there's a clear competition at Niners training camp, and it's for the 3rd. Like, I would imagine they're going to keep 3 quarterbacks. They have the last couple of years. And it's Josh Rosen versus Sudfeld, right?
Yep.
Early bet. Today it was hard to know anything.
Rosen.
Yeah. I feel like Rosen should beat him out. Has an upper hand on the offense here. Kyle clearly... No chance the Niners are claiming or bringing in a quarterback if Kyle is not semi-interested. And if he didn't like him, Josh wouldn't have come back, right? See, they just cut Josh Johnson today. Like, they didn't need...
Or yesterday, I think.
You probably don't even really need 4 quarterbacks. But clearly Sudfeld is intriguing enough. I think it'd be an interesting...
Maybe you want to push Rosen a little, too? Make him compete?
Yeah. I mean, just everyone's...
Challenge him?
Is there a more competitive quarterback room right now? I mean, you got the starter, fighting for his life. You got the 3rd guy are fighting for their life, and the 2nd, if he just is trying his ass off to start, got a lot of people breathing down other people's necks.
Yeah, maybe Oregon's quarterback room's a little more competitive right now. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean college, but I'm just talking NFL. Like, that's usually in the NFL, there's just clear hierarchy. Like if you went to Raiders practice, like. The 2 guys are not worried about anyone else.
Geno Smith isn't taking Russell Wilson's job?
No.
Kansas City's who's the backup competition of Kansas City? Tyler Thigpen and
no, it's Henny
Elvis
because
Grbac?
Veach wanted a backup quarterback that's married.
Oh. Can't have anybody calling Mahomes at 11:30
Yeah,
on
they
Friday night.
They just don't want anyone. It's just give me some married guys. One day it'll flip though, right? When Mahomes is 32 and married and like got 3 little kids, they'll like have a 4th round young quarterback.
John, Andy Dalton says nothing has changed in his approach after the Justin Fields draft pick. Andy is just as locked in as he would have been anyway. Came in on a 1-year contract. Preparing to be the starter, nothing changes, which I appreciate the quote. I don't buy it. There's no way. He thought he was the starting quarterback with them not drafting a first-round quarterback, which, again, as you pointed out earlier, he's not in a position to have that right. But I do think that's what he was told. That's what he expected. I have no problem with – I am pro what the Bears did. But I don't think he's happy. I don't think Andy Dalton's happy. He did not communicate that, but there's no chance that he's happy. Which, whatever. People aren't happy.
Yeah, I mean, I just think he's my educated guess right now, 0 inside information. I think Justin Fields starts week 1.
Yeah, I think they're in a desperate spot. As long as he doesn't have to be as ready as Andy Dalton. This is not like Trey Lance and Jimmy Garoppolo.
Well, the other thing though, Guy, is if Andy Dalton is not quote unquote the incumbent, he showed up a month earlier, right? If Andy had been their quarterback last year, I wouldn't say that. But what the hell's the difference? Just because Andy knew their quarterback coach or their offensive coordinator, Bill Lazor? Like, what does that matter?
Doesn't.
Yeah.
They need to win now, and also like them winning 9 games with Andy Dalton. I guess if it made the playoffs, that would be good. But what they really need is to show that they can win and show that the big swing they just took is a home run, or at least has promise.
Yeah. I think Justin Fields starting.
If Fields looks good, but they don't win as much, but they're not bad, does that get you another year?
Yeah. He's got to be pretty electric in some moments, I think. Because worst case scenario for them, he's like electric, but you go 6-11, and then it's like the Bears are the most desirable opening in the league, right? Because they got this young guy who looks sweet, and their defense fell off, and it wasn't his fault. It's like a Herbert situation, right, where Fields is awesome, but they're losing games. Right. That's worst case scenario, because then people are licking their lips to get in on that job. Then like Dan Mullen and guys like that are calling, like, hey, I'm in.
Roethlisberger, he get surgery?
He claimed that he
UCL?
had complete
what do you have?
Yeah, I thought he had Tommy John, which is not as bad for a quarterback as it is for a pitcher. He just made sure that the media knew how bad it really was when he had it. It's like, yeah, Ben, we get it.
So Ben is the one that reported his UCL, which I mean, if you have that kind of surgery, you should have that somebody should say that for you. You shouldn't be the one to have to report that.
Well, it was reported, right? When he tore that he had Tommy John.
So then what was the new news?
Well, I think he just wanted it out there that he had his entire elbow was reconstructed. I think sometimes with the Tommy John, they just place the hamstring or whatever, right? He was like, we blew it out. And he also told everyone that it was his idea to take a pay cut.
Oh.
Which Ben, I doubt that.
Is that the first in the history of the sport?
Yeah, I mean, he is LeBron before LeBron, who is like, if you just watch him play when he's on, you're like, God, this guy is tough. This guy is just a load. And he is the biggest drama queen going. Like the Baltimore Ravens, I remember DJ telling me when I met him, they openly laughed at like, what's Ben's injury this week? But he's like a tough guy. It's weird because if you watch if I just put together a 10-minute highlight tape of the greatest Ben's plays, you would be like, this guy's incredible. He's a tough fucking guy. I'd love this guy as my quarterback. But I think most people, especially in that division, like some of those Marvin Lewis teams and definitely the Ravens for years, like Ozzie, there's like, oh, what's Ben talking about again?
Well, I think you brought this up the other day for some reason. Maybe it was a while ago. But the Raider game, like 3 years ago, where he gets hurt, Josh Dobbs comes in. Somehow Ben's done for the day. Somehow the game gets close. Ben comes back in, throws like a go-ahead touchdown at the end of the game. But he'd been ruled questionable to return, then didn't come back. Did they end up winning that game?
I think the Raiders beat him.
Raiders somehow came back and won.
See, I don't think he threw the game-winning touchdown. I think he came in when they were down like 6. And
they led this.
Yeah. He came back for the only cool drive of the game for them.
LeBron playing tonight? Wednesday night? When do the Suns Lakers play?
I think they played tomorrow. They just played last night. They got their
Thursday?
ass kicked, so they play tomorrow, yeah.
LeBron does. I
won't miss him.
LeBron does lay it all. The NBA's gonna miss him though.
I'm ready for the Lakers to lose.
When it's, of course, but like you have to. But you're ready for him to lose. But you actually watch him when it's Nuggets Mavs. You gonna be locked in?
I
know that's good. That's good for the sport.
It's not ideal.
Nuggets Mavs is just not gonna do the same thing for you.
LeBron also walked off the court with 5 minutes left.
Yeah, I mean, pitchers do it. Hit the showers.
Well, Vogel had a good point. He's like, well, he can't get treatment on the bench. He might as well just go back there and do it. Actually, I was like, yeah, I get it. I mean, they were down like
you want to hate
40. it. I looked up, guy, and I had the Blazer game on, watching Nobody. It's a really good movie. I rented it for $19. Shows you how desperate I was.
Bucks,
yeah, but it's it's a good action movie. I love that guy. And they just, like when there's 2 playoff games, the NBA TV throws you off because I would never go to NBA TV,
Ever.
but I saw someone tweeting or Instagramming, Dame's going off. So I
didn't
went
know it was
looked.
on until I saw a highlight during the TNT game.
And then I look up and I see the score of the other game was like 78-42. I'm like, ooh, he ain't going to be happy. And then when I saw the highlight of him walking off, he had to be just incensed that his 5-year, $225 million co-star has his 17th injury in a year and a half.
It's unbelievable how much he gets hurt.
He gets hurt a lot.
Did he get hurt this much before? I mean, I know he was hurt when the Pelicans, but
he gets hurt a lot. Yeah, it feels like he has to lead the league. And I don't watch like every regular season game, but whenever there's on national TV and he's just like flipping channel, he's on the ground a lot.
Last question for everybody. Both, if you're watching on the YouTube, there'll be a photo. If you're listening to the podcast, you can find it. You probably know it already. If you had to eat one for the next 6 months, the turkey sandwich, it's almost, there's no turkey. It's like American cheese with a little, is that like a potato salad, maybe? I mean, that's better. There's a no-brainer, right? You would take that over the greasy tortilla bell pepper with a piece of chicken situation.
See,
that somebody in Beloit had to eat, or I don't even know where.
I'm a sucker for Mexican food. I think if you just if they had hot sauce or salsa, I think I'm going the taco.
You're just going the taco. I would go the bread. At least it's bread. Some cheese.
This was not like the Big League Club, right? This was
this is tweeted out by MILB advocates. Players in the A's organization shared these photos of their recent post-game meals. I do know, knowing a little bit how this stuff works, like it usually is a third-party vendor, I think is what they called it, like a caterer. And if you're who knows what the caterer's up to. But that's pretty terrible. I've seen some bad meals, John. That is a bad meal.
My educated guess on this one, because I'm with you, it's just someone back at the main office setting this up for probably everybody. With this franchise, they took the cheapest option, and this is what you get.
Well, yeah, this is a minor league, so somebody in the minor league office, I think they pay their own. You know what I mean? Like they're privately owned, is my guess, right? Whichever team this was.
You don't think the big league team's on the hook for all the food for the minor leaguers?
No, I don't think so.
I don't know how
depending on who owns it and where the team is. But gotcha. I'm with you. Like somebody went with the cheapest option. So when you say like, oh, this is just the caterer, it's like, yeah, it's the cheapest caterer you could find, probably.
Yeah. So if you're going think about this, you're going cheapest option in a time where we're in a work shortage. We can't get anyone to work because they're getting fucking paid to stay home. We're in a supply shortage. You see, the meat people just got hacked out of meat.
They got it. Yeah, I know.
We got limitations everywhere. I was playing golf with my brother. He's friends with these guys. They run this painting operation. Do you know the big thing right now is hacking? And they hack you, and they ask for ransom. They don't ask for like $500,000. They ask for like a reasonable number. If they have like your business operation, and these people that run a painting operation, they do really, really well. They ask for either $50,000 or $75,000, and the guy goes to his, it'd be like the equivalent of us trying to run our podcast, and we can't sign on. So it's like, do we either just start over from scratch, or do we pay the the people holding your ransom for just your password back? They want is for you to send $75,000, like I think it's Bitcoin because it's untraceable. And he goes to his lawyer or whatever, and the guy was like, and this is what the guy told him. If it was a number that I couldn't afford, I would just say no. But it's like, I do have the money. I want my shit back. I don't want to start from scratch. He paid him the money, and they gave him the thing.
Which they
and I guess
do,
it's
from what I've heard, they
all
do
over.
because they want to set the standard. They're like, if you pay, we're not going to rehack you.
Yeah, like we'll give you your stuff back. So that's why, because I asked my brother, I'm like, why didn't they just ask for like $1 million? Like, well, they'd never pay it. So they asked for a number like 45,000 or 67,000, and they get it.
That's a week's worth work right there for those guys.
Honestly, kind of smart hackers, because I feel like historically watching movies, they always ask, I need $7 million. And the guy's like, I only got 45,000. How am I going to get this money? And they're like, I don't care. Get me my money.
No cops.
24 hours, no cops. But if you had just said, I just want $30,000 in a Rolex, you're like, well, you give me my son back? Yeah, I'll give you the money.
Well, I've heard the other thing they do is they'll hack and then they'll sell
undercut.
you the patch.
If you're going to be a hacker, just go low.
Exactly. That's what we're doing here. They'll hack and then they'll sell you the patch for it too. Like at a big level government hack, right? Part of the point of the hack is to have the solution. So I hack you, I can show you how to protect yourself from a future hack. I can show you the hole in your defense that you don't know about, and I'll sell you the solution.
I think hackers. Remember there was a movie, Hackers. Remember that movie, Hackers?
Vaguely.
Probably like late 90s. It was a little bit like flying cars. When people talked about hackers in like the late 90s, early 2000s, they didn't really know it was coming. It's eventually coming because our entire world's going to be on the computer, right? So the main hackers are going to be the top criminals. Because you know the Tom Hanks movie where he gets taken over in like Ethiopia or whatever?
I'm the captain now, yeah.
Yeah. Well, that is going to happen a lot, but just with geniuses online. Like it's going to be the new mob is just going to operate on the internet.
But they don't have to go, Jason Bourne driving cars through streets and running from it. They're just sitting on their couch in Barbados or wherever they are.
Yeah, with a Mac.
Switzerland.
And a chew in and your feet up. It's like, oh, just got us 120Ks. Just keep adding it up. Boom, 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 boom.
How do you go to sleep if you can just spend all your time just doing that? I'd have a hard time going to bed.
I was watching this show on YouTube. This dude from CNBC has a pretty good podcast / YouTube show, and he was like, he thinks that the next big, like, just because you and I were talking that you were reading that book and that any leader would say over a period of time, things happen that you can never foresee coming, right? Just Corona, the 2008 crash, whatever.
Yeah.
Every time something hits, no one saw it coming. Even though sometimes
the
you think
flaw in human, the point, it was a Michael Lewis book. The flaw in human predictions is people never predict unpredictable things. So you just predict the future as if nothing crazy is going to happen in it.
He thought the craziest potential thing that could ever happen, and it got me thinking, like, it would be pretty nuts if a bank ever got hacked, and all of a sudden, like Bank of America, every single one of their clients, you just look, is just zero.
But isn't that doesn't the FDIC insure up to whatever it is, like $200,000 every account? Does that mean I get my money back? I know everybody says like FDIC insured, but I'm not exactly positive what that means.
Well, what if you had 15 million in there?
Well, yeah. Do people keep 15 million in one bank account? How does that work?
Where do rich people put their money?
Multiple accounts?
Well, like you don't think Jimmy Garoppolo has an account with like $20 million in it?
I mean, I'm sure he's got. It's a great question. I think he probably has multiple accounts.
If you had $100 million right now and you just wanted to store it, you would store it in like 5 different places?
I think, because
I don't know the rules.
I don't either. But the standard deposit insurance coverage limit is $250,000 per depositor per FDIC insured bank.
But guy, this is his point. If I rip out all the money, what if the insurance company's also in business with that bank? What if all the money just disappears?
Yeah, I mean, I understand. Money's got to. You got to knock out multiple people, though. Like, you have to knock out the insurer, right?
But I think there would be a lot of people at Bank of America with over $250,000 in different accounts, right? Don't you think?
People would absolutely lose money. No, I absolutely think you're right. I'm just asking the question, what does my FDIC insurance, does it like, I've never read the fine print. Does it like, we will insure 20% of your money. Congratulations. Did I just lose everything?
I think it's a little bit like eating in this, in America, we're very lucky. Like when you go out to eat, you never think in the back of your head, like this food might make me sick. Because it never does. And the one time it happens, you get food poisoning, you forget pretty fast. Like when I got the worst food poisoning, I mean, really the sickest I've ever been in my life, thought about dying. It was Chipotle. I went for about 6 months.
This was post-Chipotle scandals, right?
Yeah, post-Chipotle scandal. I said I'm never going to eat Chipotle again. I've probably eaten Chipotle since 100 times. So you just forget. This is something, when you give money to the bank, whether it's $1 or whether it's $1 million, you just feel very confident in their ability to store it, right?
Yeah.
You don't even think
all the gold in my floorboard.
Smart.
Of course, when I need to buy like a Gatorade, they're like, all right, that'll be a flake of that gold.
There's a reason Pablo, hit everything in the ground.
The ground, the wall.
He didn't trust those banks.
You're not worried about washing it then.
No.
They got bigger fish to fry. All right. Anything else we got to hit today?
I think it's all I got.
Okay. On that note, thanks for hanging with us, everybody. If you're on the YouTube, check out the pod. If you're on the pod, check out the YouTube. Get the I don't think did we mention in the beginning mailbag questions? We did mention that for another bag alert. And tell your friends. We appreciate that too. Word of mouth. It's no joke.
It's not. May the peace be with you.